It starts with Frances, who is working as a waiter in a restaurant, and after she finishes her work, she goes to ride the subway. Before she gets off, she sees a bag hanging on the chair, and she knows that the owner of the bag forgot it, so she decides to hand it over to the safes at the station, but she discovers that they are locked, so she decides to deliver it on the next day, and Frances returns home, and she lives in it with her friend, and there Erica sees the bag and remains curious to open it and read the name of the owner of the bag on the card in the one she ran, and then she finds a large amount of money, so she tells Frances that they can go with it and spend the best day of their lives, but Frances tells her that they are not thieves, and the money and the card will be returned to their place. She tells her friend that she will go and collect her own bag the next day. She makes fun of her friendship and asks her if she spoke to her father, but Frances is not. She responds, and it turns out that Frances, her father, is a very rich businessman. And Bacon wants to live with him, but Frances wants to be on her own. She works as her mother used to do before she got married. The next day, Frances goes to give the bag to its owner, and you know the address from the card and get home. And there is her neighbor at the door, and she thanks Frances for her honesty and asks her to come in and have tea with him, and convinces her that this is the least reward you can offer her, and Frances agrees, and she enters to sit with her neighbor, who asks her about the place she lives in, and she knows that she lives in the apartment of her friend Erica, and then Frances shows the picture of her husband and her daughter, Nicola, and she asks her where they are, so her neighbor gets up from her place. And she talks about her husband, who taught her to play the piano, and she plays the piece that her husband used to love, and she says that she used to live in the dream. She thought that life was rosy, but her husband left her for only 6 years after their marriage, and at that time she raised her daughter Nicola alone, who then traveled to Paris for her work, and Frances was very captivated by Greta, who lives alone and does not have anyone. And then you see a picture of a dog and you know that it was Greta's dog, but it died. Frances offers to buy her another dog to fill her void, so Greta tells her that she will not be able to exchange her dog for any other dog, but she can think. Frances tells her that she can go with her anytime they buy a dog. Greta asks her to give her number so that she can contact her. It appears that Greta does not know how to use the modern equipment, and she asks Frances to help her, and suddenly they hear a voice coming from behind the wall, so she gets angry and annoys the neighbors who have been doing showers all day, and then she bemoans Frances from Greta. She walks, and at night she takes Frances out with her friend Erica to the cinema, and there she asks her if she called her father because he is worried about her. Frances gets very upset and her eyes tear up, but Erica tries to calm her down and they return home. On the second day, a call comes to Frances from the one who tells her that she has decided to buy a dog and asks her to come with her, and Frances agrees, and she is happy because she is helping a single person, and Erica sees her and makes fun of her because she is going out with an old woman who does not know anything about her other than her name. Frances tells her not to worry, and Greta arrives at a place to adopt pets. There, Greta chooses a dog that looks like her dead dog, and you go to it. She thanks Frances for her trouble. Frances offers to take a picture of her with the dog, so she can send it to her daughter, Nicola, in Paris. And you teach her how to share the picture, and they say goodbye to each other and walk. And Frances and Greta's relationship continues, and they meet each other every day. And they go together to buy things, and they go to church. Frances is so happy to be with Greta, and I kept getting attached to it. On the second day, Erica is preparing herself for a party at night. Frances tells her that she will not be able to go with her, because she agreed with Greta that they would dine together. Erica is shocked and tries to tell her that Greta is not her mother who died, and she can't escape the reality of her mother's death, and try to replace it with someone else. Frances becomes captivated by Erica's words and quarrels with her, and you leave it and walk, and Frances goes to Greta's house, and they stand together to prepare dinner, and they are happy. And each one of them cooks a certain food and they keep enjoying their time, and you ask from Frances. She gets the candles from the cupboard. Frances opens one of the wheels. Suddenly, in front of her, she finds a large number of bags similar to the ones she found on the subway. Frances is shocked as she reads the name and phone number of every girl on the bag, and she knows that Greta lures girls like her by leaving the bag in the station and waiting for it to be packed. Frances looks on when she is busy. So you ask that it is good and that you meet the wax, and you sit with the eating table. But she would be very afraid, so I beg that she must go immediately, but the first time you open the door, you discover that it is locked with the key, so Greta tells her quietly that the key is next to the door. Frances takes him and quickly opens the door, and she comes out running out of fear. Frances returns home and tells her friend about what happened, and she is very surprised and tells her that she is. You must not contact her again, because it can be dangerous. And at night, Greta sends a letter to Frances and keeps ringing on it all day. But Frances does not answer her. The next day, Frances hears Greta's audio message. What she tells her about is that loneliness made her crazy and asks her not to leave her like her daughter. This is because she will not be able to live. She keeps trying to sympathize with Frances, as she is a lonely woman, and it appears that Frances is captivated by her words, but she is still afraid. And Frances gets her job, and she keeps calling Erica and telling her about the amount of messages and calls. Those who ran followed them. Suddenly, her coworker comes to the restaurant, and he tells her that there are 6 waiting for her outside. Frances asks him for her name, but the musician does not know, so she asks him to try to walk her. So the moose tells her that he tried, but she is determined, and he asks. She meets her quickly, and there are no problems in the restaurant, and Frances remains sure that she is Greta, and she goes to stand with her and asks her to leave her alone and not contact her again, but she does not understand what happened and tells her that she abandoned her as everyone abandoned her, but Frances makes fun of her and tells her that she saw the bags are in her safe and she knows what she is doing and that she was deceived about it, so Greta tries to justify her, but Frances does not give her a chance and throws her out of the restaurant. So Greta gets very upset and keeps standing all day watching her from the restaurant window. He tells her that he will not be able to take any action against her because she does not violate the law, as she is standing in the street looking at her and asks her to ignore her so that she does not feel her importance. And because he knows that this type of woman is only looking for attention. And then the policeman walks away without doing anything. Frances waits inside the restaurant until she is sure her neighbor is not there and goes out the back door. When she returns home, she finds her neighbor waiting for her in front of the door, telling her that she needs to talk to her, but Frances tells her that she is crazy. She tells her that she will not leave her because she is protesting, and she throws the gum on her hair. She walks and enters the house, terrified, and tries to remove the gum from her hair. They decide that they will report her to the police on the next day. At the police station, the investigator tells them that the non-molestation report or the arrest warrant will take months, and that the court is full and there is no chance that they will do anything in a short time. Frances gives her and she doesn't know what to do. To get rid of her, she thinks of Francis, the dog she adopted with, and is very afraid of him, so she decides to go to a foster home, so that there is a chance that they can get another dog from Greta, that the official tells her that there must be evidence of the dog's presence with her, whether in pictures or witnesses, so Frances decides to watch Greta from afar, to see how she treats the dog, and she stands far from her house and sees her while she is out with him, and then you find Greta's litter box next to her. And you receive messages from Nicola, and the one whose address remains in the same city. She decides to take the phone number, to communicate with Nicola, and understand what is happening, but you find that her number is switched off. I leave her a message. After a while, he communicates with her and asks her to meet. Frances goes to the interview, and there you meet a friend, Nicola, who tells her that Nicola committed suicide 4 years ago, and she was addicted to alcohol. She always talks about her memories with her mother, who used to lock her in a box, and she continues while crying and tells her that Greta is sick, and that she didn't realize the distress she caused to Nicola until after her death, and you tell her that she should stay away from her, and Frances knows that. Nicholas too, she has never been to Paris, and if they run, it's fun that they speak French well. In fact, she is of Hungarian descent, and she makes the accent, so she is very afraid of Frances, and she returns home, not knowing what to do. There, Frances notices Erica's absence, so she tries to look for her everywhere and call her, but you know that she is at a party, so she is reassured and decides to go home. Suddenly, She receives a call from her father, who asks her about her news. Frances tells him that she intends to stay away from him. City. So her father asks her to allow him to be with her so that he can start over from scratch. Suddenly, Frances receives a letter from Greta containing a picture of Erica at the party. Frances is very labored, and she knows that her friendship is in danger, and she locks with her father quickly to ask her to quickly leave the party because she is watching her, and Erica exits through the back door of the bar. But prefer cattle behind it. She sends pictures of Frances, who asks for her friendship. Try to get away from where she is as much as you can. And Erica arrives at the subway station, but please send her pictures. Erica exits the station, and she gets on the first bus that meets her, but you can catch up with Erica and enter after her. Erica quickly got off the bus, and she goes down after her just as she takes Frances by taxi. And before Erica gets to fight with Frances, she takes her and they walk away, and she disappears. I ran completely, and Frances and Greta live in terror and they don't know how to act. On the next day, Frances goes to her work, and her father calls her, who knows everything that is happening from Erica, and asks Frances to stay away from this crazy woman. But suddenly, Frances's manager comes and asks her to complete a job, and Frances is forced to hang up and tell her father that she is speaking to him again. Then she goes to one of the customers' tables and finds a pot in front of her. She walks quickly and tells her manager that this woman is chasing her everywhere, but her manager tells her that she is holding a table and that there is no invitation to their relationship with each other. Frances asks the receptionist to call the police, and Frances goes to Greta and gives her everything she needs, and she keeps dealing with Frances rudely as if she was controlling her, until suddenly, Greta throws up. Frances gets a drink and breaks the table and tries to attack her in the crowd, and she tells her that they are linked to each other and that she needs her. Meanwhile, the police arrive and arrest Greta. Finally, Frances is relieved, and she comes home happy. On the second day, she calls the police station to make sure that Greta is still being held, but you find out they took it out. Frances is very afraid, so Erica advises her to go talk to her girlfriend and tell her that the problem is with her and that she needs to take a vacation and then go back to be friends again, and this is to keep her away from her and see someone else. Frances decides to do so, and she goes to her church in the church, and there she tells her that she loves her and that she is really like her mother. And you tell her that she will travel for a short time and come back to her again, and you believe it. You ran it and embraced it, and you tell her that she is waiting for her, and then you come back the house. There, she puts an anesthetic on the dog and tells him that it is clear that it is farewell. And in Frances's house it remains a rule. You find the implants on it, so she calls Erica and asks her if the implants fell out soon, but you find out that Erica is not at home. She takes a cup of tea and drinks it, but suddenly she gets dizzy and her eyesight gets blurry. Suddenly, in front of her, she sees a silhouette of her neighbor, telling her that she did not see her receiving her needs, and that she knew that she was lying. But fortunately, it exists, and you pick her up and let people help her to get into a taxi, and she tells them that she is her niece. And you take her home. There, Frances remains unconscious, and she sees the dog in front of her. You also see her running while tearing the piano, and the door to a strange room opens, and then Frances, completely conscious, but suddenly she excels while she is in her apartment, and it appears that she was dreaming, and she gets up from her place while she is drinking tea. And her father comes, who remains, and she decides to travel with him, bid farewell, and ride the elevator. But suddenly the elevator gets stuck and keeps going up and down the whole building, until the elevator turns into a box that suffocates Frances, the one who suddenly wakes up from sleep and discovers that she is locked in a box. You would rather scream out of fear, until you come to her and tell her that this is the box of liars, and that she prefers to be locked up until she learns not to lie again. Frances begs her not to close the box, so Greta tells her that she looks like Nicola, her daughter, who has no personality or decision. Then she goes out of the room and locks the door on Frances. Frances explores the rest of the room and notices another girl's ID. Suddenly you hear the sound of a piano, and you know if someone is locked up in it, the first time she came home, and that the sound of banging was actually the voice of a girl imprisoned. She screams. Frances fumbled as she flopped on the precaution. Greta asks what she did to the girl before her, and collapsing to the ground in fear. Meanwhile, Greta is holding Frances's mobile phone, and she sent her father a message that she was on a trip with Erica. Erica has a message that she is on a trip with her father. After a week, Frances gets out of the room. She prefers to give her drugs all the time, so that she can't resist. She teaches her the piano and beats her with a stick if she makes any mistake, as if she was a little girl. Then she teaches her French so that she can speak like her. At this time, Frances's father returns to the city to check on her. He goes to Erica's house, and there they both discover that Frances has been kidnapped. They sell the father as a private investigator, who knows that Greta is a former nurse, and she was fired from her job because of her drug abuse. So the father gets very angry with the investigator, looking for his daughter, by wish. Meanwhile, her jar stays with Frances at home, teaching her to cook. Frances seizes the opportunity and cuts off her fingers and beats her until she faints, and then you try to quickly get out of the house, but she discovers that all the doors are locked, so she quickly goes down to the basement to look for anything that can help her. Suddenly, you see the body of the girl who was before her, but you discover that she is still breathing, and I ran her behind her and drugged her again, and then by shouldering her in bed and locking her in the room. As punishment, on the second day, the private investigator will be able to find Greta's address. There, he asks her if she knows anything about Frances. Greta invites him to a drink, and she tells him that she hasn't known anything about her for a long time. Frances hears a strange voice. She prefers to rock her bed to make a sound. Greta plays music loudly, and she works herself looking for me, her dog, but the interrogator notices the voice behind the caution, so he tries to shake the piano, but Greta comes and injects him with an anesthetic, and she tells him that Frances is a succession, so the investigator takes out his revolver, and he tries to direct him towards her, but he faints, so Greta takes the gun from him and kills him. And then you put his body in and clean his place. After a while, she runs back to leave her bag on the subway, and she chooses the places where girls stay, the age of her daughter Nicola. Ashan leave the bag and walk. Indeed, the bag takes one of the girls, and you go to Greta's house. There, Frances hears them and tries to make a sound, but the same scene that I saw is repeated, in which she is annoyed by the neighbors, and then you sit with the new girl to drink coffee with him, but suddenly you feel strange dizziness, and the girl appears. And she takes off the wig, and it will be the same Erica, who you say. Because she wanted to regain her friendship, she keeps looking around for a place, until she hears her voice behind the piano, unbuttons her hands and feet, and hugs her, and suddenly they hear the sound of music playing again, so Frances gets very scared, and Erica goes out of the room, but she discovers that Greta is not there, and suddenly Greta blossoms, and she tries to strangle Frances until she faints from the captivity of the drug, and Erica gets so angry, she wants to kill her, but Frances tells her that she has a better idea, and they decide to lock her in the same box and lock the door of the room for her. With this, Erica succeeds in saving her friend from her crazy run, and before other girls fall victim to her